Hi everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Rocio with Sparkling Punk, and today we are actually going to be talking about things to think about before vending at an indoor event versus an outdoor event. So I wanted to go ahead and bring up the reason on why I bring up this topic. So my first event with Sparkling Punk was an indoor event, and it was Hill Country Comic Con in 2021 in August, and it was convention. It was a really big event, but a small convention. So that was an indoor event, and then after that, I decided to do my first market as Sparkling Punk with Skellington Curiosities. So I went from vending indoors to vending outdoors, and I did not know the difference. So I had previously done indoor and outdoor event with my previous business, RNK, but it was not official. It was just something that I was trying out, and then I eventually registered my business, Sparkling Punk, got the license, rebranded, all of that stuff. And that was back in 2018 when I was with RNK, and then in 2019 November is when I decided to bring up Sparkling Punk, rebrand, and all of this stuff, right? So at that time I was very small with RNK. I just randomly brought a table I had. I bought a little 6-foot size canopy like this way, and like I didn't really know what I was doing. If y'all want to see how those pictures and videos look on how I started, go check out my Instagram in the little journeys story section. You'll see how bad my little setup was back in 2018. It was not the best, so I didn't know much. But when I went to Hill Country Comic Con, I had all of 2020 to go ahead and rebrand myself because of the pandemic. I actually had a whole booth set up, and I got told that I needed to maybe tweak some things. So I reached out to some artists. I reached out to an artist friend of mine that is friends with a lot of artists that are small business owners like me that are also artists. So there are small business owners. And they went ahead and told my friend, so she sent them pictures of my booth setup and like just all this information about me. And they went ahead and gave her constructive criticism to give me. Well, I went ahead and took that constructive criticism and I completely redid my booth setup, layout, colors, everything. It was just completely redone. There was some things I kept, like my branding, of course, and like that, but like there was a huge change. Taking constructive criticism is a very hard thing for a lot of human beings, and it was a very hard thing for me to take for the longest time as well. But taking that constructive criticism actually helped me get to where I was convention-wise in 2021. It was very cool being told by people that I actually looked up to and came to my booth, and they told me that they thought that I'd been doing this for a really long time already, when they would find out that this was barely my first convention. Well, I was very proud of that setup, but when I went to an outdoor event, it was complete madness. I will show y'all pictures right here of me smiling and trying to take a good picture, but in the background you see my little grids, and there is nothing on the grids because I had some malfunctions. So I wanted to go ahead and tell y'all some things to consider and just think about before you plan on vending at either an indoor or an outdoor event, and what to expect. When I talk about indoor events, I'm mainly going to be talking about conventions, specifically anime conventions, but this could pertain to any type of indoor event for many of the things that I will be saying. An outdoor event, I mean more of a craft market and just market in general, because those are what I'm in and what I do. So yeah, I just hope that this kind of helps y'all, especially if you are a market vendor trying to go into the convention setting, or the other way around, you're coming from conventions going into markets. I think it'll be beneficial for the two groups, and today I'm only going to be listing things. We will actually be going more in depth, and I will be making more videos going more in depth on each topic. So yeah, I just wanted to give the list, but today we're gonna be just talking about things to consider. So let's go ahead and get started with an indoor event. So when you are doing convention, you wanna definitely consider booth fee. Booth fees I've seen as low as $70, but I think they could be like $50 to $1,000 plus, depending on the size of the booth and all of that. So like I said, we will be going more in depth in a later video. You also want to consider booth size. Normally there's like a 10 by 10 or an 8 by 8. So know that depending on your booth size, they will be more expensive the bigger you go. You also want to think about passes. How many passes are included with that booth fee? Is it just the artist slash vendor, or is it the artist slash vendor plus one? And if it is there any other passes after that? Can you buy extras for a discounted price? Do you have to buy certain tickets after a certain amount? So all things to consider there. Tables and chairs. Are tables and chairs included? If so, how many? And is there like a table limit? So sometimes there's conventions that say you can only use one table, or you can use two tables because of the size area. So you definitely want to make sure to ask or see if there's all these questions in the application form. Note that there is booth assignments. So they will assign you a booth, and normally you will be paying also more depending on where you want to be, which is a corner booth, a middle booth, or an end booth, depending on like how the convention is set up. But corner booths, because they have more space, tend to be more expensive. Middle booths tend to be cheaper. Booth height limit. So for example, the convention I vended at had a height limit. I had a canopy, like a little cute canopy, and they told me you don't have anything else that goes higher than that. And I said, no, I do not. This is it. I hope this is okay. And they told me, yes, that is totally fine, as long as it's nothing that's higher than that. So make sure that there's no height limit if you're going to be posting like posters really high up, or if you're going to have like a canopy like me, maybe it'll go even higher, right? So all those things to consider. Setup day, or days or times. So are they going to make you set up the same day? Are they going to make you set up a day before? And I'm not saying like I mean like, will they give you time to set up the day before? And then what times? So is the convention center open from like 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.? Are you allowed to get there like at 10 a.m.? Do you have to set up the day before? I mean the day of, like at right before at 8 a.m., right? So most conventions allow you to set up the day before, but hey, you never know. It could be like a market, and it could very well be that you have to set up day of. Event dates and times. Do those dates and times work for you? Sometimes there's conventions that are Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I can't do an event that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because you are required to be there all 4 days. So I wouldn't be able to do it, right? Is it Saturday, Sunday? I could do it, but normally Saturday, Sunday means you go set up on Friday. So you have to take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off of your work day. If you do work on the weekend, you're gonna have to get Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you work on Friday, but you have the weekend off, then you're gonna have to get Friday off to go set up, or you're gonna have to go set up later depending on what time you can go set up. The audience. You really want to consider the audience type. For example, Hill Country Comic Con is a very kid-friendly event, so I have to make sure that the products I bring are very kid-friendly, and so does everybody else. Bringing NSFW type stuff isn't really what they want to see, right? They do like seeing anime nerdy stuff, but it also has to be kid friendly. So for example, if you go to like Comic Cons, those tend to be a little more teen and adult oriented. So they'll be more likely to allow you to have more like risque things, but you got to really think about your audience and also what type of stuff you're going to be bringing. So if you're going to a comic book convention or an anime convention, you want to have some things that are comic book or anime related to fit into that scene. Travel time. How far do you have to travel? Is this event, does it require you to fly? Does it require you to drive 2 hours? Is it just right down the street? So considering that, location. Where is it? Is it in the country? Is it out of the country? Is it in a different state? Inventory transportation. So will everything fit in your car? And I mean, if you're gonna be bringing tables, chairs, if they don't provide them, or even be bringing an extra table, be bringing all of your inventory, how are you gonna pack everything up? And is everything going to fit in one car to be able to take it and not waste gas on 2 cars? Your booth setup. Do you know the size of the booth that you decided to choose? Have you tried a booth mock-up for it? Have you made it in a way where people can walk through? Have you made it in a way where people can see things very well, grab things very well, in a way where theft isn't as possible? The way you package your things too. So all of that, definitely consider it. Do they provide dollies? And I mean like the push cart dollies. My convention did. They provide push cart dollies, but they only had a certain amount. So you had to get there early to be able to get a hold of a push cart dolly, or you were carrying things in. What time are the load-in times? What time are the load-out times? Can you start breaking down before the event is over? Can you start breaking down as soon as the event time hits? And how long after do you have to break down? Food. Do they have food inside the convention center? Are you gonna have to drive out to go get food? Should you bring food? Can you bring food? So all of those things. And food money as well, if you're gonna be spending. Is it gonna be affordable? Which most of the time, convention food tends to be a little more expensive. Lighting. Do you know if that convention center has good lighting? You know, I have had people tell me where a part of the convention center, the lights went out. So they ended up bringing some lighting in case something happened. Can you move your table around if a table is provided? So for example, Hill Country Comic Con has one table and has a table skirt on it. You're not allowed to take the table skirt off, and there is a backdrop that you're supposed to leave up because it separates each booth. So I was able to move the table, but I wasn't able to take the table skirt off, so I just laid my tablecloth on top of it. And can you move them? Sometimes some convention areas want you to keep the tables in a certain row and a certain layout. So that's another thing to consider and ask. So that is everything I got for indoor so far. There is so much more to consider for indoor, but now we're gonna go ahead and move over to outdoor. So for outdoor events, you really, and I have to stress this enough, and I put it as my number one because I did not realize this, and this is what really just gave me an anxiety attack on my first market, and I accidentally flipped out on my friend because she was helping me and I couldn't, I was very flustered. And I know we all get like that, we get flustered, but is it windy in that location? Or is it a windy day? So depending on how buildings are around where you're gonna be, the location might be windier. If the wind is blocked by a building, then you don't have to worry too much. But if it's in an open area, you might have to worry about wind. And I had that issue with a lot of my stuff blowing away. I have a grid wall that I like to use, and I was gonna do my exact same setup that I do for conventions. Well, it did not work out because the wind just took everything. I put my stickers up, my pins up, and the wind took everything off of the hooks. So you really want to consider wind. And like I said, I will go further into detail on what we can do to avoid wind stuff like that. Weather. Is it gonna be cold? Ooh, or hot? You wanna know how to dress well to be able to market out there properly and just be comfortable in front of your customers for 4 to 5 to 6 hours. Because remember, booth setup, whenever your booth setup is, whether it's an hour before, 2 hours before, 3 hours before, you're gonna be there starting from that time until the event ends, plus another hour maybe to break down. Especially if you're slower, you're gonna take longer to break down. Setup. Your setup really needs to be in a manner where people can easily walk through in and out. And also in a way that is fit for that environment. And by environment, I mean like weather. Like, you really got to think about it with the weather. Depending on the weather, you might have to change your setup. You might have to try baskets instead of grids. You might have to have heavier grids. So there's a lot of different setups. I cannot highly encourage you guys to make sure you do a booth mock-up before you even go to the event. Draw it out, test it out. Yes, set it up at home. It's gonna suck, but making sure you measure out how much space you're gonna have at both indoor and outdoor locations and making sure you set it up is very important. It will make your life so much easier because you can take pictures of your setup to be able to set up quickly. Which brings me into the time. How much time are you going to be given before the event to set up? I have noticed a lot of markets only give you about an hour. With my setup and how much merchandise I have, an hour is not enough. Don't be afraid to email the owner and tell them, hey, I'm so sorry. My booth tends to take a lot longer to set up. Is it okay if I arrive an hour earlier than the original time to start setting up? In many, many cases, they might tell you that they aren't going to be there and you could go ahead and set up early, or that you can't because there's other businesses that are, doing their thing. Or they might say, yes, you are more than free to go ahead and come an hour early. Thank you so much for informing me. So do not be afraid to go ahead and message them or email them, whatever way their form of communication is, to tell them that. The booth fee. Booth fee normally is about $35. It's $35 normally for most of the markets that I do, and can be even more, like 50 or higher up. Space. Some places ask you can only bring canopies or things that are of 8 by 8, 10 by 10. So definitely make sure to check to see what the space is. Do they require you to bring a canopy? Event dates plus times. So what are the dates? What are the times? A lot of markets tend to be on Sunday. Are you fine with working on a Sunday? Are you okay with driving out wherever you got to drive out, right? Tent color. This is going to be a really weird one, but there is a couple markets here in Austin that require you to have certain color tents. Yes, that means if they require you to have a white 10 by 10 tent, and I'm not kidding you, there's a couple that I want to apply to when they require you to have a white 10 by 10 tent, and I do have a white 10 by 10 tent. I don't know, my brain was just like, I'm gonna get a white one. You need to go ahead and get a white 10 by 10 tent, or you have to rent one out from them if they have any available. So make sure to read those requirements if they require a specific color tent. And does this market want you to only accept card payments? During this time right now, a lot of markets prefer that you accept credit cards only, Venmo, PayPal, that kind of deal. But cash is a huge thing. A lot of people only go with cash to market sometimes because if they feel like they can budget themselves a little bit better just by bringing cash. So are you okay with only accepting cards if it's a card only / Venmo / PayPal type event? Are you okay with that? So make sure to check all of that. And the same goes with transportation and transporting your merchandise. So you got to think about it. When you're doing an outdoor event, you are transporting so many more items. For example, at a convention, you don't have to bring a canopy, and I mean like a full-blown 10 by 10, 8 by 8 canopy. That takes up space. You normally have to bring your own tables. They normally don't provide tables for you, and they normally don't provide tents for you. So you got to really consider, are they going to provide you with anything? And you have to bring everything that you're going to set up with. Everything. Conventions sometimes provide you with things. Most times they provide you with a table and chairs, but at an outdoor event, you need to bring tables, chairs, and everything else. So, oh, and a canopy. But yes, you definitely want to consider that. So I just wanted to go ahead and list all of the things that I have, noticed and I felt like really need to be considered before you apply to vend at an outdoor event and an indoor event, because things can go wrong and will go wrong at your first event. My first convention, I spent 5 or 6 hours setting up. I have a video on it. There's like 5 or 6 hours just to set up the day before. And going from that to be able to slowly set up, not rushed, to, and by the way, I did a mock-up for that, to going to a market that was so fast-paced. I had to quickly set up in an hour my first market, and then I had to go ahead and break down quickly, because let me tell you the difference between a convention and a market breakdown. A convention breakdown is pretty quick, but you're in a building. At a market, when you're breaking down, people leave and you're not in a building. You're outside, in a parking lot. So you're left by yourself. And if it's a late event and then it starts getting dark and then you need to get your stuff in your car, it is crazy. And the thing that sucks is that you gotta normally put your canopy in first, and that's gonna be at the bottom of everything, but you can't put your canopy away until you put everything else away. So it gets wild. The fast-pacedness of a market in comparison to a convention is just huge. I was one of the last ones to break down at my convention, first event at the convention, but it didn't feel as rushed in comparison to a market. It's just, wow. Market speeds are quick, which I know a lot of people want to start at markets because they are cheaper, and yes, they are cheaper. We'll go into that as well, but it is extremely fast paced. So I hope that kind of helped y'all think about some things if you are thinking of going either from market to convention or convention to market. And I'm not saying you're going to be choosing one or the other, but just know that you will probably need 2 different types of setups for those 2 different types of events. And if you have any questions, I will try my very best to answer them in the comments below. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. I can't wait to make part 2 for y'all to go more in depth into each topic. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to post every Friday with anything business related that I possibly can bring, whether it's Artist Alley, my regular everyday craft life, or helpful videos like this, or even reviews from manufacturers that I try. All right, I will talk to y'all later.